Hi, welcome to Comic Talk. I'm Josh.
And I am Drew.
Incredible. And this is our pull list episode for August 5th. We've got a plethora of titles here. This is a heavy week for us, so let's get right into it, Drew.
Let's do it.
Let's start out this week with Detective Comics. What's the number?
43.
43. This is written by Buccellato.
Mm-hmm.
The art's by Blanco, and then Buccellato is also doing the coloring.
Mm-hmm.
So run us through just real quick what's happening with this one.
In this issue, we see Harvey and Jim continuing to pursue the Mexican Danzig gang after the power core of the suit goes missing.
Let's just start out with the writing here. How are you feeling about this book now with the storytelling?
It pissed me off, and here's why. We're doing the poll review this weekend. I was so ready to drop this, and the fact that this is a good issue really pisses me off. Like, why are they doing this to me? Why do they have a hit now after weeks of failure? So I'm guessing that you pretty much felt the same.
I felt the exact same way with it. Yeah, this one really drew me in. I really liked the interplay between the characters and the dialogue. I felt like they're finally moving the story forward.
And it's interesting plot twists as well. And this one, I think the thing that really caught me off guard was that I am not as annoyed that the circus hasn't happened yet as I was with the other issues. Which, by the way, we are still waiting for the circus to happen. It has not happened yet.
Yeah, it's 3 issues now of waiting for the circus, which seems to be the main plot point of the whole thing. I also liked that we have Jim Gordon out of the suit for most of the issue, which, if you remember, was one of my big claims is how to make this better. Was get him out of the stupid bat suit and have him just be in his more Nightwing-ish looking Batman garb and being
because
a little
it's
more
cooler than the suit.
Yeah, just being a little more personal, a little more conversational with him and Harvey, and I just feel like this moved forward a lot, and we had a lot of things that were complaints before get resolved here in the storytelling department.
Definitely, yeah, that's how I felt. So what about the artwork? Because we had complaints and things about that as well.
I feel kind of the same way with the art. I feel like it's starting to hit its stride. It's starting to kind of make sense, and it's getting a little more consistent in its style and tone in here.
Right.
I feel like they're getting finally to the heart of what it is they want to do artistically.
The gritty detail, I feel like, really shines through in here. And they've really got good about placing it as well, because that sort of gritty, gross kind of look that works for Harvey obviously isn't going to work for Yip. And they seem to be on board with that whole deal.
Yeah, I think so too. They're really bringing me back into this book. There was one other little thing. We always like to talk about little details with the art. I loved in Jim's apartment when we see his table and we see this nice storytelling sort of device he's got the cigarette pack, but then he's got all of these supplements and ginseng and like bottled water and vitamins.
Yeah.
And it really just sort of speaks to Jim really trying to get into shape and be like a badass Batman. And I kind of like that they threw that in here. I always
like
love
that the
little
cigarettes
things like that.
are still there too.
Right.
It's like he went to GNC, but he stopped at Walgreens on the way back.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and move on then to our next title of the week. This is Airboy number 3. This is James Robinson and Greg Hinkle.
In the end of the last issue, we see Greg and James enter the Airboy world, so to speak. And this one is a lot of them exploring that. Of course, as expected, they almost immediately fuck it up.
Man, I still love this book.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
I've yet to have a complaint about it.
It just gets better, in my opinion. This one is better than the last, and the last one was better than the first one. And the first one I thought was awesome. I thought that month, it was probably my pick of the month. And here we are 2 months later, and it's just getting better and better. The art here has now sort of turned on a dime. Now we have them sort of in the one color format, and we have all this beautiful coloring for the rest of the world.
Yeah, which is the exact opposite of the last page of the first issue, because we got very used to that sort of one color and lines and stuff, and then Airboy shows up and he's in like the Technicolor and looks all pretty, and now it's exactly the opposite. Everything's really pretty except for these two guys who are just dull and kind of gross looking and
Right.
pea green, and
Yeah,
which is completely fits them and their role in the story.
Yeah, and it just looks so cool. I just love looking at these pages. The coloring is awesome. They make a reference in here to Mike Mignola, and I mean it's dead on. You know, it's like they really are channeling that sort of steampunky World War II colorful cartoony thing, but still managing to be like really gritty in the least cheesy sort of mainstream gritty way.
It's very self-aware.
Yeah.
Very, very self-aware. I think that was one of the things that originally caught me so much in this comic, is just how self-aware everybody in it is.
Right.
And this is absolutely no exception.
Mm-hmm. And how about Robinson's contribution here? What do you think of the writing with this?
Again, self-awareness. He's so good. His bit of pouring his heart out to Airboy and stuff, it felt real. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I love how now that we're in Airboy's world, like all of these characters in Airboy's world are coming alive, and he's sort of bringing them into a more three-dimensional sort of realm from a character standpoint. You know, Airboy, as soon as we're here now, he's no longer sort of the butt of the joke. Now
He's the standard.
he's the normal person, and they seem almost
Out of place. They're definitely
two-dimensional.
out of place.
You know, it seems almost like they aren't quite as with it as he is in terms of not just their comfort level, because they're, you know, it's fish out of water story, but I mean in regards to the depth of character that they have. Now they're almost caricatures, and the rest of the characters in the world seem very well-rounded and full.
So the static and dynamic sort of switched around.
Right.
Characters that used to be flat are now round.
Yes.
Voluptuous.
Yeah. It's a pretty invested storytelling that we have here. It's deep in the way that he's handled his approach to these characters. It's not just continue the characters. It feels like he's specifically sort of pulling back on one character and moving another character into the foreground. It's pretty
impressive.
awesome.
Yeah. I'm sad that this is the penultimate issue.
Right.
Actually.
Yeah, only one more. This is only a 4-issue series. If you would have told me 6 months ago that I wanted an ongoing Airboy comic, I would have told you that was stupid. And why would I possibly care about Airboy?
Right.
But they've done it. All right, well, now let's talk about Boom Comics' Big Trouble in Little China, number 14. This is by Van Lintz, Eisma, and Duarte.
So in this one, we see Jack Burton exploring the year 2015. Not very impressed with it, but he is on the quest to go find the Pork Chop Express again.
Yeah, so for me with this one, I'll come right out and say that I'm still not loving the art change.
No, and really when I saw the cover, this is probably the worst Big Trouble in Little China cover that I've ever seen. So that alone kind of just set me up to be disappointed in the art. That being said, even if the cover was awesome, the art is not nearly as cool, in my opinion, as 1 through 12 were. 1 through 12 were just right up my alley. Like, they had that indie feel, but it wasn't too out of the box. You know, it was playful, where this just doesn't seem playful.
No.
It seems cartoony. And
It feels phoned in to me,
Yeah.
honestly.
we could have had anybody do it, and I would, whatever.
In regards to the writing, I'm liking this more than I liked last issue.
I think that this was the funniest comic that we did this week. There were multiple laugh out loud moments for me. And they're talking about, I don't remember the guy's name, but there's an equivalent of Joe Camel that they talk about in here, and he got banned obviously because they don't want to sell cigarettes to kids, whatever. And Jack Burton gets really upset, and he's like, let me get the quote. Who will teach young people about cigarettes? He's so concerned about it. Yeah. I thought it was hilarious. I think the writing is 100% increase from last issue.
I'll agree there. I'm still not completely sold on it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm still not loving it, but it's definitely an improvement. It's no longer probably in my let's stop reading this list, but it's still pretty close.
So, I mean, aside from the artwork, then, what's the missing link for you?
I'm just not buying into it. It's hard to say. It's hard to put a finger on what something lacks for you when you're reading it. Sometimes it just doesn't click, you know. There are a few things that I really liked. I liked the conversation we had about cell phones versus pay phones. And a lot of those sort of elements are fun, but I don't feel like they're really contributing to a story. I think if I had to put my finger on it, I feel like a lot of what's going on in here is humorous or interesting, but it's not moving anything forward, really. I feel like the plot is almost unnecessary or irrelevant to what's happening.
Yeah, and it's hard to really say that or draw a comparison between this version of that and 1 through 12's version of that, because in my opinion, the plot has never really been the strong point of this book.
Sure.
But that's not to say it can't be a weaker point from where it was. And I could see that. But this definitely, on that note, made me laugh more than some of the 1 through 12 issues. Not all of them, by any means. This is not my favorite issue from a writing standpoint, but it is not my least favorite.
Fair enough. Jupiter Circle number 5. This is by Millar, Jean Felice, Mortarino, and Sforcina.
Not to mention the gorgeous cover by...
Beautiful Frank Quietly cover. Yeah.
So in this issue, Skyfox, our wonderfully childish protagonist of the issue, falls in love. But in what we're coming to see as typical Jupiter Circle fashion, it's all fucked up.
Now, first of all, I started with last issue, number 4. Yes, number 4. And this doesn't seem to have really any continuity from issue number 4.
Other than some supporting characters. Not really.
Right. So, did you start at 1?
Yes.
Has that been sort of how this works, or is this now a sort of a switch here?
That's how it's been since the beginning. Each issue is sort of like a one-shot for one of the people on this team.
Cool.
Which I think is really cool. So, again, we do have some supporting characters, the people around him. I mean, it's still the same group, but it's sort of singling them out one by one.
Well, I have to say, I really liked the issue.
That was great.
It's not a complaint by any means that it doesn't seem to be a direct continuation of the story that was occurring. And that definitely clears up sort of the tone for me on what's happening here. So I imagine what we'll see is all of this sort of come together at the end.
Maybe. I don't know if there's really space for it to. Because all of the stories are so drastically different from one another. I mean, there are several love stories, but it's different stuff. I mean, in one we have a guy leaving his wife and kids, for a waitress he met or something, and this one is completely separate from that. I'm kind of interested to see any kind of continuity and how Millar really approaches that. I think that really could be the breaking point if there is one, because it's so great right now. It's easily one of my top picks for definitely the week, if not the month.
Yeah, I really like it too. It's I would call this superhero slice of life. I don't know if that's what we ended up saying about last time, but it immediately sprung to mind with this month's issue. They're superheroes and they have superpowers, and there's even a few moments where there's sort of superhero-y battle things happening, but it's so background. It's not really what this is about at all.
Not at all.
It's really about who these characters are and sort of how their life unfolds around being a superhero.
Yeah, there's a definite conscious effort on Millar's part to play down any sort of superhero bits. I know that the last issue, one of your favorite parts about this was the artwork and how all the clothes just fit wonderfully. And we see a great continuation of that in this issue. Other than that, what'd you think of the artwork?
I still love the art. I think it's subtle. It's
very subtle.
It's clean. I think it's masterful would even be a way to put it. It doesn't bother itself with trying to be too flashy or exciting.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, when I think of masterful, it's like the Baroque painters and stuff in my mind,
sure.
where it's just immense detail and the most vivid colors you've ever seen, which is not this.
No.
This is what I would say textbook modern classic.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you a very classic feel to it, but that being said, you're not going to be able to find a classic comic that is a direct correlation to this.
Yeah, this looks like what you would imagine a classic comic would look like before actually looking at a classic comic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is sort of an idealized, romanticized version of like a 60s or 70s comic
Right.
almost.
It's still very minimal, but it has little twists, the little things.
Mm-hmm. And I have to say, with the actual physical book, the paper they're printing this on is so good.
Yeah.
I don't know why everybody doesn't use this. It's almost cardstock quality paper. It's wonderful. This is a book I would never read digitally just because
It feels good in your hands.
the paper quality is just so high. Yeah.
One thing that I did find a little bit different about this issue from the last one is just how funny it is. And I think that was perfect for our protagonist of the issue, because this guy is a total drunk and he's completely childish, like got that quasi frat boy sort of vibe to him. And I think that it's really a testament to the prowess of Millar, and that's kind of a strange statement to say. That the tone can change so much just based on the character that he's talking about. Mm-hmm. And the problems that he faces, I feel, were very real for somebody in that sort of persona.
I get a real Rat Pack vibe.
Yeah?
Not just from this one, but from the last issue as well. Sort of classic Sinatra or Dean Martin. I feel like these are sort of characters in that vein where they're very suave and sort of classically manly.
Yeah, well, it's set in the 60s, so gender roles are very clear and defined.
Right, yeah. But they're also, there's a lot of humor in these books as well, and a lot of drunkenness and revelry. Mm-hmm. You know, it really has a vibe that to me harkens back to that era, which that's the era it's supposed to be in. So I think he's really nailing that.
Yeah, good job, Millar.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about another slice of life comic, but about as far the other direction as you can possibly get. This is giant size Little Marvel AVX, or Avengers vs. X-Men. Mm-hmm. This is by Scotty Young and Beolio. Tell us a little bit about the riveting story and tale that we get in this issue.
Oh, it's so fucking intense. In this issue, we see the Avengers and the X-Men continue to try to wow the new kids, the twins, with their varying forms of super swag. But in a twist ending, there is a third friendship suitor.
Yeah, so right away, the cameos that we get right near the end were great. I'm not going to spoil them for the readers in case anybody hasn't read the issue yet and is interested in doing so. But do you agree?
They were great. They were hilarious. Even as a non-Marvel fan, like once I realized what was going on, it was just facepalm. God damn it! Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Very cool. What'd you think of the writing here?
This is the first issue. Given this is number 3, so we're not very deep in. This is the first one where I could see any semblance of continuity whatsoever, and originally that disappointed me a little bit because they're doing so well without continuity. It's like, it's just one of those books that doesn't need it. Just do a different thing every issue. It's completely appropriate, and it's not something that a lot of people can pull off. That being said, I think they're doing pretty well advancing the story, even though it's not deep at all. It's about the most shallow story as you can get, and just like with the one-liners and little plugs and ideas and stuff like that, they're keeping it fresh, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it's just every panel there's some new, either a sight gag or, like you said, a one-liner, some sort of continuity joke. It's just all cylinders. Like every single thing you look at or read, there's something to try to make you laugh or try to at least get a snicker out of you.
My one complaint, and this is a pretty big one for me, might actually put it in my bottom for the month, but there's not a joke about little Daredevil in this one being blind. I I don't know what the hell they're thinking with that. Scotty Young, we need more blind jokes.
Yeah. I don't think Daredevil was even in this one, was he?
No, he wasn't.
What a bummer.
I know.
Yeah.
Shit. Could have been like in line, turn the other direction, or something.
Yeah. There's so many ways they could go with it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's a blank canvas.
It is a disappointment.
Yeah. You have a blind child. Like,
forget
just
this.
fucking use him.
In regards to the art here, I'm still loving this art. I think it's great. Every time we get a 2-page spread, I feel like I just want to sit and just really indulge in it. And it's such a strange feeling to have for something that's this sort of simplistic and goofy. Normally
Even childish.
very childish,
Yeah.
but yet somehow it's still engrossing. Like you really want to dig into it. At least I do.
Yeah. And the artwork is simple. I mean, it's Scotty Young, so you know what it looks like, if you know. But I don't feel annoyed by, like you said, the 2-page spreads or anything. It doesn't feel lazy in this. It feels fun and appropriate, and
Yeah.
it just feels right.
And there's so much movement in his work and what he's doing here. Like everything feels like it's moving or in motion. All the characters, like somehow even with these little chibi sort of characters, they still feel like they have weight and momentum behind them. It's pretty impressive.
Speaking of, one of the twins in this never makes any facial expression. And I just notice it every time because, like you said, everything is always in motion. Nothing is the same from panel to panel except for, I believe it's the girl's facial expression. It's a nice touch.
Yeah. Well done stuff. Well, that's going to bring us to our last comic of the week. This is We Stand on Guard, number 2 by Brian K. Vaughan, Steve Scroce, Hollingsworth, and some dickbag by the name of Phonographics.
What the hell is his problem?
I don't know. Who does that?
Birth certificate? His parents hated him.
Do you think
Put that baby back in the vagina.
Phonographics did lettering and design? Is this a person? Is it a company?
It has to be a company.
You think that's what it is?
Yeah.
Like they're
They
outsourced?
outsource their lettering. That's pretty lame.
I don't know.
It's kind of weird that there's even a standalone company, so to speak, that just does lettering. Like, what? In this issue, we see Amber, our protagonist, finally accepted by the Resistance. Sort of.
What did you think?
I'm going to stay with my analysis of the last issue, and this doesn't feel like Brian K. Vaughan that I know. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I liked that there was a bit less French in this issue. I didn't feel... I don't think I felt lost in the other one, but I felt like I maybe should have felt lost. Probably the highlight for this writing-wise for me is Brian K. Vaughan's amazing ability to sort of get in people's heads and portray very starkly different characters who have little twists that make them not exactly the people you expect them to be. We have one character in here who's like your typical mecha grunt, sort of, just a dirty-looking guy who has robot parts and stuff. And then through dialogue, you find out that he had a husband who died, which is fine, whatever, but you don't expect that at all. Like, you look at him and you just think he's some dirty, weird old army guy, you know. Such is not the case.
Right. I completely agree. His dialogue is awesome. I love it, just straight up. And just the personality that he puts into these characters. Like, as you read each dialogue box, you can almost just read that dialogue box and you know who it is that's speaking just based on how he structured the sentence, how they approach what they're saying.
Little slang contractions and whatnot.
Yeah, it makes it very engrossing, and it makes this large cast of characters that we've been thrown into very easy to digest.
Absolutely.
And makes it easy to get into these characters too. And with the way he's writing, with some weight and with some consequence, that's super important, because there's some things that happen that if you weren't relating to these characters could go over like a lead balloon.
Yeah.
But the fact that he makes these characters so personable so quickly, we can already have some big consequences and some large plot movement happening.
Yeah, like you're already identifying with the characters, so
Right.
you care what happens to them. Like, even the guy that only speaks in French, like, he's the guy that only speaks in French. And as much as you're frustrated by the fact that you don't know what he's saying, like you still want him to be okay.
Right.
You know?
Even with him, sort of the isolation that you get from him from only speaking French, I kind of want him to be okay because he's like, there's nobody else that can even speaks his language, man. He's got it pretty shitty. So, I kind of feel that way with all the characters. There's things about each of them that make me want to see them get through this and persevere.
So speaking of things that would be standard if not for very creative detail, let's talk about the artwork.
Yeah, let's. Well, I think that's a good description of what we have here.
It's exactly the vibe I got from it. Like if you took just a regular old Marvel book, I mean, given there's blood and stuff in here, so you wouldn't see that, and then just went through and tried harder, it would look like We Stand on Guard.
Yeah, it took another pass, another run through on it. I completely agree. It's a great looking book. It's not revolutionary. There's nothing odd going on here with how things are laid out or how the art is done. It's in a very sort of comic realist style.
Mm-hmm. The coloring's all, again, pretty real.
Mm. But at the same time, it's sort of the pinnacle of that to me. It's a really great representation of comic realism.
Mm-hmm. Just some of the little details, I love it. The way that she gets out of the shower and she's still wet, they were able to portray the fact that she was still wet without making it weird. We get a lot of snow in here, and just the combination of the haze, the visual haze that you sort of get from a snowstorm, and just picturing, the snow particles or whatever, flakes themselves. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. It's incredible, the well-placed detail in this book.
And there's a lot of weight to the characters and to the scenery around the characters. Like I feel like they inhabit real space. Mm-hmm. The dimensions, I suppose, maybe is what I'm getting at, are just very powerful feeling to me. Like I really feel like there's a character standing in the panel.
Right. Who's the artist for this?
This is Steve Scroce did the actual penciling.
That's great. Has he worked with Brian K. Vaughan before?
I do not know.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. For this book, I would say it's a pretty ideal pairing. This is like Snyder and Capullo. Mm-hmm. It's just like they're both. You can tell they're both really going for the same thing, and like they just have their minds locked together in some death grip of genius. And let's hope they don't stray from that.
Yeah, it really works well. Brian K. Vaughan's style of sort of a realist dialogue really meshes well with this sort of realist artistic approach, which sometimes I feel like Brian K. Vaughan, when he works with some artists, even people that I really love. For example, I really love Fiona Staples' work, but I don't always feel like her style meshes that well with his style, even though I love both of them. But here, I feel like this is a really wonderful match.
Yeah, I mean, people can be great on their own and not necessarily great together. Trying to imagine like a Grant Morrison, Scotty Moore team up.
All right, Drew. Well, I guess that's going to pretty much wrap this up for the week.
Yeah.
Monday, you guys should come back. We're going to do our monthly pull list review. We'll go back and talk about what our favorites were this month, what our least favorites were. We'll talk about what we might drop. We'll also talk a little bit about what we might want to add. Do you have anything in mind?
There's a new Brian K. Vaughan coming out either next month. I think it's next month, called Paper Girls.
Paper Girls. I've been eyeballing that one as well. So we will have to seriously discuss that one. And there'll definitely be a few more as well. Also, coming up next Thursday morning, we will have another pull list review. So check back with us soon. Make sure to like and subscribe down below. Give us some comments. Let us know what you think of all these books this week. And if you have any opinion on what we should drop, what we should keep, or if there's something else we should read, let us know before Monday, and maybe we'll discuss it on the show.
Maybe.
Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.
Check you later.
Check you later.
Check you later!